right, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We're really excited to host a discussion about designing employee benefits for a diverse workforce. And my name is Elizabeth Kerwin. I'm a managing partner at Diversity Works and really excited to have everybody joining us for our live event this month for the DEI Leader Network. Rachel, can you advance the slide? I'm sorry, I'm not able to. Thank you.
Sure.
So just a little bit of background on the DEI Leader Network. We created this community because we have found that sometimes being a DEI leader in your organization can be a lonely job unless you're lucky enough to have a team behind you. So we've created this community to give folks a chance to learn about a wide range of DEI related topics, as well as just make connections and you know, grow with each other. We hold these monthly events on different topics. You know, we've done bias in hiring, we've done all sorts of different topics. So today we're talking about benefit design. We have a private LinkedIn group where we encourage folks to ask questions and respond to each other. So encourage a conversation there. And we also have a free DEI assessment that you are invited to take that gives you a good high-level overview of your organizational performance with regards to DEI. So lots of assets available to you all, and we of course welcome any suggestions for topics that we should cover for future events. And thank you for joining us for this one. So we fundamentally believe at Diversity Works that that focusing on diversity is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do. We think that there is a strong business case for investing in diversity, and the topic today will hopefully tie to that directly. We think that making inclusive benefit design is a way to attract and retain high-performing employees. So it's definitely related to a business case, and it's also just more relevant than ever. I think that we're all feeling like there's more that we can do to create a just and equitable society. So this is part of that journey. And our evaluation framework at Diversity Works covers strategy, covers internal performance, as well as external performance too. And the way that we see benefit design fitting into our framework is through workforce composition. So like I said, attracting and retaining good talent. Onboarding and retention in that internal category, as well as benefits composition, pay equity, and profit sharing. So it really crosses a number of different areas that we consider core to DEI performance. So that's just how today's topic fits into our evaluation framework. And I think that one of the things that that we see at Diversity Works for really driving the need to focus on employee benefits is that there's a lot of competition for top talent these days, and keeping high performers on your team is takes some work. It's not just automatic. So we see that that benefit design can really be key for that top talent and keeping high performers in the workplace. Also helps improve your reputation as an employer, and it helps reduce some costs, such as reducing turnover costs. Keeping people in seat is a lot less expensive than filling those seats. And fundamentally, we think it's also about living your values. So if you have made a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, then looking at benefit design is a good way to express that commitment. So I'm going to do some brief introductions, and then we're going to have a discussion on a couple different topics that Rachel Peterson, my colleague, is going to guide us through with our panelists, and then we will wrap things up. So today we're really fortunate to be joined by two experts in the field of HR. Anne-Marie Phillips is the Global Head of Total Rewards for Marsh McLellan. She has expertise in establishing, enhancing, and evolving total rewards programs for Fortune 500 companies, where she has led those organizations to achieve awards for their total rewards programs, workplaces, and cultures. She's a multifaceted leader with financial, operating, administrative, and human capital experience in diverse industries, and is a steady influence for change. And Mary Tinebra is an officer at Fertility IQ, the world leader in global family building, digital education. Prior to joining Fertility IQ, Mary was senior partner for 20 years at Mercer, the world's largest professional services firm in HR and management consulting. She was leading teams that delivered global solutions for organizations as they reimagined their vision for HR in the new economy. So we're really, really grateful to have Mary and Anne-Marie with us today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Rachel to start us our discussion.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and welcome everyone. We're really excited that you're here to join us for this important discussion. You know, as Elizabeth had mentioned earlier, Diversity Works views inclusive benefits as part of the framework that Diversity Works has created. And we are very excited to partner with subject matter experts to dive deeper. But before we begin with sort of the Q&A part, the panelist part, I was hoping that both Mary and Anne-Marie, if you would, as a way of introducing yourselves, will you share what makes you passionate about this work and why employers should care about inclusive benefit design?
Yeah, sure, happy to. I'm passionate about the work because of the impact, and I've witnessed companies that have really invested in their employee populations, and benefits has been a key area to do that, and getting into the details and understanding how to really help people and their families, and being supported by top leaders to do so has really been rewarding. The impact, of course, is quite significant to employers. You know, it can come through in business performance with increased profits, engaged workforce, better connections to their suppliers, their communities, enhancing their reputation, and a lot of the things Elizabeth shared as reasons to do this. But having an engaged workforce has so many positive results for an organization, and making sure the employees feel that they're cared for by the company, it comes through in their benefits delivery.
Thank you. Mary?
I echo everything Anne-Marie just shared. And if you think about what gets exciting around this, is we've got 4 generations in the workforce today, first time in history. And the diversity of needs are so profound. And you complement that with the competitive landscape and all the points that you were making about attracting talent. Before we got on the call, Anne-Marie made the comment that she likes puzzles. And in many ways, that's what's in front of us. So if you're energized by a lot of velocity of change and doing that in a way that makes the impact, as Anne-Marie described, it's exciting. It's a really important time for diversity leaders and benefit leaders. Collaborating together is, what gets us energized every day.
Thank you. Thank you. So the first question is, what actually makes benefits inclusive? Can each of you talk about that from your perspective?
Sure. I think, to put it simply, they benefit all, right? And so that requires a holistic approach, making sure there's an understanding of your employee population and how to best serve them. And importantly, how are they supporting your DEI efforts and the alignment to the strategy the organization has set out to achieve?
Yeah, and I think that by addressing everyone in the way Anne-Marie just articulated, it creates that sense of belonging. So everyone feels that there's a piece of the offering for them that resonates and makes them feel included in the vision of the company and organization, whether that be you're a woman or your race or ethnic groups or LGBTQ+. And now it's even more inspiring. Companies look at neurodiverse members of their workforce and thinking of benefits really kind of touching all needs. And pulling that together in a holistic way is pretty extensive body of work. I'd also say looking at kind of all spectrum of wage earners, and then care access that you might have at differing levels across the United States. In healthcare specifically, and ensuring that what you're offering represents can touch all those groups.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I think some examples are really when you look at the different elements of benefits, maybe starting with well-being. A lot of well-being programs were focused on physical well-being, and so there's been great progress, and a lot of organizations have evolved those physical well-being programs to be more holistic and include support initiatives and just ways to help people achieve mental health and emotional health improvements, as well as even financial health. And so there's been a full perspective of the person now, instead of just the physical aspects of well-being. Certainly we've seen evolution in healthcare as well, to move to care management and even beyond, and retirement now, really looking at even the savings rates of different populations, and the ability to save to get a matching contribution, or is there a gap in your retirement program that needs a solution to be more inclusive?
Interesting. So then how do companies actually select the benefits that are right for their employees or right for their companies in terms of their mission and their values and their goals?
Yeah, my recommendation is first to define success. So what are you trying to achieve? So what does right look like for your organization? And then, that may require some steps first. It's not that easy to put pen to paper on that if the information, the reviews haven't occurred. So maybe you need to start to look at your demographics, look at your reports. How are people using the current benefit offers? What gaps do you have? What new programs have you put in, and how have the adoption rates been? What communication programs have you used? Do you need to evolve that further? And budgets, so there may be a full development of a roadmap, because it may not be solvable in a one-year program. And then certainly reviewing, assessing, and measuring the impact of that, and tweaking as you go.
Yeah, I'd also say, as DEI leaders, leveraging your ERGs is an important voice. So doing, if you've heard the term like an inclusive circle, where you might bring different groups of the workforce together to get like a mini focus group on their needs, they'll have an enormous voice in the lens of what Anne-Marie just talked about, right? So how do you put those insights together with the data? And you have to kind of look at two together, because sometimes the data won't give you a lot of information about how people are reporting out in their identities. So those pieces are important. The other thing I'd say that's happened a lot in kind of the selection process over the past several years, and some of it might have been triggered by COVID, but honestly, it's been such a great solution. These virtual focus groups, and I'll just give it a technology I'm familiar with. It's something called Remesh, where in a really fast cycle, you can get the voice of hundreds of employees in kind of this virtual community about what their needs might be. It feels to me, when I've seen the data and outputs, you get a lot quickly. And then on top of it, people are very comfortable sharing, some of their confidential needs there as well. So I'm sure there are many other platforms like Remesh, but nonetheless, any way you can get that proper pulse check, I feel is valuable. And And then there's just a lot of competitive data that you can take a look at working with your consultants or brokers by industry and geography. If you're trying to make the right selection, you want the voice of the employees, but you also want the voice of the future people that you might want to hire. And if they might be coming from the tech industry and you might be in a supply chain company, how do you match up benefits a bit, looking at that in areas that would be important to them?
Yeah, those are great points. And engagement surveys are another good source of information. Your talent acquisition teams. So as they're talking to candidates, sometimes they hear questions as to, does your benefit package have such and such? That's great feedback, you know, if you don't, right? So yeah, there's certainly lots of avenues to understand what right benefits means for your organization.
Mhm. Do you suggest looking at competitors as well to see what competitors in your field are also offering in comparison to what you do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what Mary was even referencing, the surveys. So that's sometimes more general, but any kind of networking you can do with your peers is always helpful. And then sometimes you may decide to go beyond what is competitive in the marketplace. It may be back aligned to your values, may be important to your industry to over-index on a particular type of benefit. So it's assessing all of that and ensuring that it feels right in the end.
We have a question from the chat. Do you see differences, or what differences do you see with the different generations that are now in the workplace that you referenced earlier, the 4 different generations?
I can start, and Anne-Marie will have, I'm sure, tons of feedback. It's a lot. I guess there's many differences between the generations, and I'm sure all of you are staying tuned into the publications and needs of Gen Z, for example, and what they're looking at in terms of workplace experience, which again is not necessarily a financial benefit, but what do they expect every day when they come to work? Economics in terms of supporting people and through college expenses and things that might be really important to that new generation. Someone at the end of their career, that wouldn't be of interest, but what are we doing to support an older worker with family needs, elder care, right, that they might have for their parents, and are there things that you might offer there? Or as Anne-Marie pointed out about career transitions and retirement, are there better paths to navigating people's transition from their career than the way it might be done today, where it could sometimes be very abrupt and you have to navigate your workforce differently? A lot of what we do at Fertility IQ focuses on millennials, mainly because they're in the prime family building age. And so what you provide in those generations around family support, we'll talk to that in a second, is pretty unique. So it's very multi-layered. And, and when I look at the word right that's sitting on this page, it's hard, right? It's not to say that it's for the faint of heart. I mean, there's many things you'd want to do. So you have to really kind of navigate your priorities and objectives, as Anne-Marie said in the beginning, and make sure that maps well. And you're not going to get it all done in 1 year. It's going to take multiple years and learning and experience from your workforce. Anne-Marie?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think there's a lot that I've seen that is different by generation, and there's a lot that's the same. And I think some generations have been more vocal than others, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the others don't agree. So, for example, easy to understand benefits seems to be more a newer thing, and it kind of cut through the complexity and simplify communications. And but that's obviously appreciated by all. And everybody's busy, you have complex lives, balancing home and work. And so small sound bites of communication really help. And breaking it down so that it can be more impactful. So that has certainly been appreciated. So by breaking it down to life moments and communicating your robust package in segments like that makes it more digestible. So I've seen a lot of evolution in that regard by those, not only by those generations that are asking for it, but also I think some of the digital solutions to ease the administrative aspect of being able to break down the communications and the packages to a concise offer. And but I have seen, where there has been some generations have been more interested in retirement, and it's just what they're focused on. The older generations are focused on their next step, which is retirement, whereas the younger generations are interested in retirement. I have definitely seen a strong interest there, and that becomes part of the whole financial well-being package that you offer, and fold in your retirement programs under that, and help the younger generation with their savings goals, understanding how to save to meet their goals, and similarly, I think well-being, like I said, is being very inclusive on well-being will serve all the generations, from the different aspects of how they want to achieve their goals. So there's definitely been the good news is been a lot of change in the benefits world. About 20 years ago, I had a boss who said benefits move at a glacial pace. That is not the case anymore, and hasn't been actually for a couple of decades. So that's the good news, is companies really are looking at evolving their programs and following through.
Yeah, I can remember when I first entered the workforce about 30 years ago, I was never asked a question about what kinds of benefits would suit my needs. And now it seems to be more of the question that's what's asked, which is great, because it means that companies are engaging all stakeholders, not just sort of the bottom line of how much we can afford to give. Along those lines, can you talk about how you would recommend employers calculate the ROI on benefit spending?
Yeah, ROI is challenging because there's a lot more data that helps in understanding it, and it's not purely financial, right? There's a lot of soft benefits from inclusive benefits. So your engagement scores, are they increasing? Are you being recognized for the programs externally that you're offering? What's the general sentiment? Do your leaders feel that they're that we're offering the right things? So there are many components to it, more than the financial aspect of how much are you investing in your benefit package. And are you seeing an improvement on, the high risk claimants? Are you seeing an improvement on, cost, the spend? Those sorts of things are important to monitor, but so are the soft benefits that come with all of this as well.
Yeah, I'd also say too, when you think about doing those assessments, and then what do you want to represent to your talent marketplace as well, and how your employees look at what you do from an inclusivity view. And by that, if you think about the Human Rights Campaign and their LGBTQ friendly scoring that they've been doing, and they're doing for 2023, they took a year off last year. And they really put employers through a pretty extensive assessment across the board of benefits and offerings, and making sure it's equally helpful for same-sex couples as heterosexual couples. So elements like that, you need to, because actually, if you try and attract talent, people look to those scores and see what you're representing to the community as well. So that's a piece of the puzzle, as we've talked about, but it's not something that you should take lightly. You should go back and make sure you're meeting some of the minimum requirements that they have as well.
I just learned from a company that they provide elder care benefits, and I thought, I didn't even know I could look for that, and that is an attractive piece for me based on where I am in my life. I'd like to move on to the next question where we can do a real deep dive into how parental benefits are evolving. Can each of you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've seen incredible evolution in this space, which has really been great because it's also a broad definition of parental benefits. So what I've seen is focus on care, your healthcare coverage, what's covered, what's not, where are gaps, and where do you need to supplement, and with programs like Fertility IQ and support services, but also coupled with the parental leave programs that you offer. And what are you offering? How much full pay is offered to the parents? How are you defining parents? Are you defining it broadly or narrowly? There's so much there, telehealth, even going beyond, like, for pet parents, for elder care, as you mentioned. So it's more, just even family friendly benefits is where I've seen, the parental benefits evolve into understanding your flexible work programs, understanding, the well-being content, your EAP, what's covered, and even the voluntary benefits, where your legal program, you may offer a legal program in your voluntary benefits, but does that include coverage for foster care, adoptions, those types of support programs, support services that you may need from a lawyer? And you can easily make a switch, on your legal programs to align to those goals as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rachel, your story about how much it's changed for you, and you think about, I was with a client a couple of weeks ago, and they were sharing with me some data that they had globally around pet bereavement. So you were talking about pet care, but around the world, what do people offer if someone loses a pet? And I again, if you kind of mirror that against some of the needs of Gen Z, these are things that they look for. The pet's part of their family. I mean, pets are part of all of our families, so I don't mean to say that dismissively, but but just showing you the extent of where things have gone towards, right? Just in a real caring lens on what you can do to help people in every aspect of their life. So, that's one piece of it. And I think a lot, I'm very lined up with everything that Anne-Marie said. The diversity of options is so extensive, from, flexible time off and scheduling and leaves. I think the ongoing, and I wouldn't call it a debate, but this flexible working topic, which definitely lines up to parental benefits specifically, it's still, I think most companies are going to still end in some kind of hybrid lane on this, but there are definitely, the latitude is giving working parents tremendous opportunity, I think, because if I, again, go back to when I was raising my kids, it was never allowed, really, very frowned upon. And the type of, childcare options, you're kind of going on your own, really. And now today, there's so many supportive organizations that will help you get emergency daycare. And there are incredibly high quality options for people. And then trying to really drive the spectrum, because maybe some of these things won't be available to your low wage workers. So what options do you have for them as well? So thinking those elements of once you're a parent, and then, as Anne-Marie said, building a family, whatever path you take, can be emotionally exhilarating and stressful at the same time, right? So as you go, if you needed IVF to build a family, and how can I get educated on that? That's what my company helps do, which is IVF, adoption, surrogacy, egg freezing, any of those paths people might take, to give you confidence as you're going through that journey. We educate employees. Alongside that, there's fertility insurance and benefit platforms that people may have there, or working directly with their carriers. All of that comes together in kind of a suite of things that employers like Marsh McLennan would offer to large companies, and help them kind of shape out what's best for them, depending on, again, looking at those 4 generations again, and then what you want that future workforce to be. So pulling the complement of the leave strategy, the actual benefit itself in each of the caregiving wellness categories. And then, really making that create a synergy. And so how do people know what they have and that's accessible and leverageable?
To that point, there's a question in the chat about how can employers encourage their employees to use their benefits, to actually understand their benefits, and then engage with them with the programs that are offered.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about my experience has been, in multiple ways. It does take quite a bit of focus on that area. The company has made a commitment to these benefits and done the work to understand how they fit in the overall package that they're offering to their employees, the research on their demographics, those sorts of things. So then it's not, implement and done, it's really integral to the success to make sure that there's awareness and adoption. And maybe at the time the benefit was rolled out wasn't of interest to you, but years later it may be. So it does require continuous promoting, and that's done in multiple ways. So there's the open enrollment season is a great time to embed some key programs that you may want to highlight. Certainly communication throughout the year is effective as well. Bundling it, like I said, is also helpful. So when my prior company rolled out Fertility IQ, we made a change on our legal program. So we made sure that we talked about the whole packages and reiterated work that we had done on the parental leave program. We had a flex back to work program. So we just even pulled out, some programs that we had implemented years before to re-highlight together as a full package. And just, for those that were either in the beginning stages or in the middle, or maybe even considering, and, some maybe thinking about becoming a parent down the road, it would catch their attention. So it is a continuous approach. There's a lot of it's digital now, the communications with portals, so that helps. If you're still doing a print communication on your open enrollment, it's great to put it in print at that point too.
Yeah. The digital side is becoming so important, and you're really attaching is open enrollment's amazing point to amazing crossroads to touch the employee. But there's a lot you're sending to them at one time. So you have to figure out what other ways, as Anne-Marie said, you can kind of spoon feed information. Pride Month, for example, if there are benefits that are really important to the community, that you would kind of spotlight those as well. A lot of my colleagues that are in benefits describe themselves as in marketing jobs in many cases, because that amount of rigor that needs to go into reaching out, touching, and communicating in a different way takes some work, but you have to always kind of stay ahead of kind of whether it's National Infertility Month or week or, any of those milestones are a good chance to remind people of what they have available. Because in some ways, if we go back, say 10 years ago, the website used to be the only place, but we all know it's hard to assume people are out there that often. And then if you've got retail workers where, some of them may not be actively on a computer, they have their phone. Is there ways that there are apps and things that might touch employees differently? What do you do in a break room? What type of webinars might you have that you could get a good, consistent cascade out to your employees? So you have to kind of use every tool in the toolbox, I think, to really maximize that participation as much as you can.
Yeah, tools for. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, there's tools for virtual benefit fairs now, which is one of the byproducts, I guess, of the pandemic, and so that's also a helpful source. Mary mentioned business resource groups earlier. That's another good source to have a benefit expert come join a business resource group and just talk about the programs that are specific to that interest. So yeah, it is every tool in the toolbox, as Mary said.
Yeah, I remember at a former place of employment, they would hold like a luncheon or a dinner, depending on during the open enrollment period, and we would all gather. And because the topic was open enrollment and benefits, they had sort of a chalk talk around like, what benefits are you taking advantage of that you would want to share with other employees? And so by word of mouth in that way, that it was topical on our minds because we were there to enroll, but also we got, little tips about, oh, so-and-so is taking advantage of this health app that they're using. And that was really helpful because I definitely learned about different apps that other people were using that I wouldn't have normally learned about. There was another question about how employers can help address health inequities like maternal mortality rate that is higher for Black women. And I was wondering if you could speak about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that has evolved on the care advocacy sector. So there's a lot of programs on care management, getting a care advisor, and staying connected early on. I haven't seen the greatest adoption on those from employees. So here's another area I think of opportunity to continue to evolve. But the programs are fantastic. So it's a matter of just getting engaged and ensuring ensuring you offer it through your health insurance, what gaps you have and may need to add to your current programs, and then certainly all of what we've talked about of making sure the those that need it are aware of it and are engaged, because they are helpful.
Yeah, I building on that, I think, in the very beginning, I was mentioning about some of the health inequities that sit on geographically because the access to care is so tough. Honestly, some of these things are still a work in progress. The employer can get to a point, but if there isn't enough care or specialty care that people might need in a given zip code, that's something that, state level concerns must address as well. But given the apps and such that Anne-Marie was mentioning alongside education, so people know if when they're pregnant, what type of care they should receive or things that they should be doing, different issues on diet and lifestyle that are important and from a parent that again could affect infant mortality and other things like that. Giving that information as either through the doctor network or the plan network or website or education, every one of those things, you almost have to hit all of them at once and hope you'll connect with that employee at that right point in time. But it is a work in progress, I believe.
Mm-hmm. At this point, we want to see if there are any questions. If anyone wants to come offline, or Holly or Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, working with insurance companies as a client for years, one of the things that you can do as an employer is really understand the vision and values of the insurance company that you partner with for your employer-sponsored insurance offerings. If they have a focus on health equity, that's obviously going to benefit your employees if they understand that there are and they have programs built around that. And what we see is a lot of the community-based regional providers tend to do a little bit more formal in that respect. So it's just something to think about when selecting your insurance partner, if that's a priority for you and your employee population.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Rachel, I just want to highlight a couple of questions from the chat. Jody Siegel asked about whether Mary and Emery have any thoughts on legislation like what is found in Illinois that recognizes social infertility similarly as medical infertility, and whether that will become the norm in the future. And she says it's a great tool to work towards equity in LGBTQ plus healthcare, although she imagines it might face some pushback.
I can start. I wish I could say I'm familiar with the legislation in Illinois, so I apologize on that. I would hope that we could all aspire by state to kind of push in these directions as well, that would drive towards more equity. I'm not, and I'm not making a political comment here either, so I'll just kind of leave it at that. But I feel in some ways, every one of these states is kind of driving very different agendas right now. But I think it's the right thing to do, especially if we're talking about inclusive benefits and how we might help individuals in their journey. Anne Marie, do you have any thoughts?
No, I agree. And I think, an important point that I neglected to make, and I think Holly was talking a little bit about it, is if your health care programs are self-insured, they comply with federal regulations, and there tends to be more flexibility in amendments and just reviewing the details of coverage and what options you have to adjust, versus a fully insured program has to comply with the state laws. And that's where, you do get into all the variations by state, especially if you have a diverse, employee group across the United States. So it does make it complex with the states being, having such variations.
There's a question there by Stacy. One of the questions is best or next practices for encouraging employees to use basic benefits like dental. Can you give us some recommendation or suggestion? Because there seems to be a lack of knowledge regarding dental benefits out there. Or how could that be increased also?
Yeah, dental, especially preventive care, right? So healthcare, dental, any preventive treatment, really pays dividends in the long run. So, what I've seen is communication, really targeting populations, locations. If it's feasible to do on-site discussions about the values, really trying to improve the participation, because it definitely is what they say, an ounce of prevention. So it works, but I think it's just continuous promotion about the value.
Stacy had another question about what trends you're seeing in benefit needs or requests that are coming from companies with large union populations. Wondering if there's any difference in unionized versus non-unionized workforces.
Let me defer to Anne Marie. If even historically, Anne Marie, if there's anything from your previous life that you might share there. I'm not as familiar currently with union groups. Yeah,
sure. What I'm seeing as far as the union groups is actually quite similar. The requests have been quite similar for non-union, the interest for the non-union groups as well. I've seen an evolution from, the coverage for part-time workers versus full-time workers also evolving, which is a great thing to have more equality and in the offer. So I definitely see more alignment there, and in having a robust program that's inclusive and serving the needs of that population. So companies tended to do it a one size fits all in the past, and then kind of moved more towards options and just offering a number of number of options to choose from, and now are getting much more, it's kind of like taking out the scalpel and going in and to the details, and there's so much more data available, relying on the data to help guide you and understand where things are working, where they're not working, and setting up your plan to evolve. But there's definitely been, I've seen more alignment between the union and the non-union offers.
And I'm going to combine two questions for our final question here, and it's about inclusive benefit design for two specific groups. One is single mothers. What can you offer single mothers besides childcare in a benefits package? And the other is benefits that support neurodiverse employees. So a two-parter to finish us up.
I can start on the, so I'll give an example with neurodiverse, and you can look this up if you want. It's probably out on YouTube, but SAP has a very progressive employer program for neurodiverse employees. There was a 60 Minutes episode about what they do, and they're a client of mine. In essence, what they're doing is kind of creating a funnel for the community. If they're a tech company and neurodiverse early career employees and individuals, they keep them basically in a campus community together and train them all in a kind of a holistic way on if they're doing coding work or other technology work and within the SAP framework. Extraordinarily successful. And they're basically kind of taking a feeder from colleges that are, again, having really strong programs for neurodiverse workers and kind of a supportive setting that's anything unlike something I've seen in my life, right? In terms of what they're trying to do to support in the longer state. And the other things that basic fundamentals is about, how people consume information and what you can do with closed captioning or speeding up, recordings and language and education that you might have for employees in that are identified as neurodiverse and ADHD individuals, and how can they feel more successful in their workplace environment. There's a variety of interventions that people can make. In terms of single mothers, couple of comments there. Again, for us, we provide pretty extended education for single mothers by choice and leveraging them in a journey as they build their family. I think a lot of the same offerings we've talked about with caregiving and support for emergency daycare and other things like that are set up for anyone building a family, single mother, single dad. And so, I think there's lots more support there. I think there had been, and Anne-Marie could probably give a bit more detail on the insurance side. I know there used to be some issues if a woman wanted to build a family, they kind of got caught up in some of the rules that might have been there for fertility if they wanted to go through, donor sperm, for example, to build a family. So, I know there was some confusion there, but I think most insurance options have caught up to support women in that phase of their life. Anne-Marie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I agree. There has been definitely, more improvement in the coverage now. I think also looking at your tiers in your healthcare coverage, traditional tiers are employee only, employee plus one, and family, right? So employee plus one, the costing of that typically assumes a spouse, and the spouse is much more expensive than a child. So you may want to look at that as an option to say employee plus, partner, spouse, whatever your coverage offers, and then employee plus child as another tier. That could be one option. Certainly flexibility matters, and but as Mary said, that matters to all parents. Remote working when able, floating holidays, maybe floating holidays that could be broken down into hours. You need to run to the child's school for a presentation that they're doing, or a play, something like that. Also, telehealth is a great benefit for families, really for everyone. It makes it easy to get treated. EAP, your EAP program has many facets to it that may not be known, but they can even help find summer camp for children. So it's just going through, what are you offering, and what do they really offer? What's embedded in that, and highlighting it. A lot of the backup childcare programs offer elder care programs. So so it's really just understanding all of that, and then pulling it out to help communicate to your employee base so that they're aware things exist like this.
Great. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for all of the insights and gems in today's conversation. Really, really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us. If folks have more questions, please use our LinkedIn group and we'll keep the conversation going there. There's a link to it in the chat, but we'll send an email out after in a day or two where we'll include the link to the LinkedIn group as well as to our DEI assessment. I know somebody asked about that in the chat as well. But thanks again very much, Anne-Marie and Mary, for all of the insights you shared today. Please join us next month when we're going to be hosting a panel discussion on employees with disabilities. So another topic for inclusive workplaces and one that we hope you will get some benefit out of as well. That will be June 15th. And as always at 1 p.m. Eastern. And in the meantime, please do stay in touch with us. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. We post these videos of the live events on our YouTube channel, and we are still on Twitter. So, but thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. We really appreciate it and hope to see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now.